One of the big differences between the Porsche GT4 and the GT3 is the size of the wheels. The GT3 has much wider wheels, which means we can fit much wider tyres, which means even more grip. In this video, we're going to be looking at wheel and tyre options for our GT4 as we look to fit bigger tyres to our car. We're also going to be showing you a brand new product that we've developed, which is a world first in terms of tyre fitment for the GT4 and the GT4 RS. We've already fitted quite a lot of upgrades to our GT4, which now has our full circuit handling parts kinematics kit fitted to it. So this is a mixture of parts including springs, top mounts, rear toe arms, bumps to tyre ends, just to get the car handling much better out on track. We've really got the car now in a position where we love the dynamics of the car and how it feels and handles out on circuit. But we are now at the edge of what the tyre is capable of giving us. So we know we're using that tyre to its maximum effect using our infrared tyre temp sensors. So the next step now is to get more grip, which means going to an even wider tyre. If we go to a wider tyre, it means that we have more rubber in contact with the ground, which offers more grip to the chassis. This effectively means we can have more G-force going through the car, which means higher cornering speeds, and the tyre is capable of pushing back on that and allowing the car to grip onto the track before reaching the edge of traction and sliding. So if we can fit more rubber on each corner, we get more grip overall, which means faster cornering speeds. The mission today is to be fitting even wider tyres at the front and rear of our GT4, and stay tuned because we're going to be fitting tyres at the back of this car, which hasn't been done on a stock body GT4 before. As standard, the GT4 has a 295 rear profile tyre and a 245 front profile tyre. So the next step up is a 255 front, and the most common step up to achieve on a GT4 is a 305 rear. We want that 20mm increase so we can A, feel the difference and get a benefit from going to a bigger tyre, and get more grip at the rear because this car is rear-wheel drive and mid-engined, so the rear wheels have a lot more work to do than the fronts in terms of maintaining grip through the corner. At the front, this isn't so much of an issue. Because we've increased the camber using the camber plate, we've achieved that by pulling the top of the wheel inside the wheel arch, which gives us the room to run a wider tyre more than comfortably. So that is on the stock rim now, a 255 front profile tyre on a 20-inch front rim. That is fitted with perfect amounts of clearance on a 255 tyre. The issue is at the rear of the car. So at the back of the car, when we run a 305 tyre, we have contact issues with the bodywork. So the 295 original wheel and tyre already gets very, very close under compression, but at the back, we're going to run into some issues. The reason we have these issues is because at the back of the car, we adjust the camber using the lower control arm, and we use an eccentric bolt and shims to push the camber out from the bottom at the rear wheel. This effectively tilts the whole wheel assembly outboard as we go, which moves the tyre further and further outboard as opposed to the front, which goes inboard if we increase that camber. So at the back, we've fitted a Michelin Cup 2 305 30 20. So this is a 305 tyre mounted to the completely standard Porsche rear wheel. Now what we're going to show you is the problem that happens under compression as you're going around track if you just bolt this to the car as standard. So I've taken the spring off so we can simulate compression without the spring fitted. The damper is still in there. So as I'm jacking up, you'll see that the tyre, when we get into compression, right there, hits the bodywork. Now, if you're out on track, this could do two things. One, the bodywork could cut into the tyre and cause tyre failure, not something we want at all. The second option is the impact between the tyre and the arch could severely damage the rear quarter panel, which again is an integral part of the car, and we don't want to be causing damage to the bodywork of the car either. So this means, as standard, we cannot run a 305 rear tyre without having body contact issues. So to increase the clearance, we designed a new rear upper top mount with a bearing offset position, which is a bigger offset than the standard top mount. This is effectively going to lean the damper over a little bit more and pull the assembly inboard to give us the clearance that we need here between the tyre and the wheel arch. We can then use the lower camber adjustment to effectively pull the whole assembly in. So we're not just applying a load of camber to the rear axle. You could if you wanted to, but what we can actually do is pull the top in and then pull the bottom in, so we have the same camber angle as before, but the whole assembly is just moved inboard slightly to give us the clearance that we need between the tyre and the wheel arch using this top mount. So we're going to get this top mount fitted now, and then we're going to jack the wheel assembly up and down again with no spring, so we can show the clearance that the tyre then has against the wheel arch. So we've now got the wheel back on the car with the 305 Michelin tyre, and it's got the Suspension Secrets camber top mount fitted to the rear shock as well. So we're going to jack this up through its assembly as we did before, and we're going to see if it now clears the bodywork on full compression. We've got plenty of clearance on the inside edge, there's absolutely nothing to worry about there. So we're jacking it up now. and yet we're fully in compression here. We're about to bottom the damper out, in fact. The damper has now stopped, and if we look up here, we have a clear gap the whole way around. It's only about sort of 3 to 5 millimeters, but clearance is clearance on bodywork. So we have that gap now under complete full compression with a 305 tyre fitted. We're not hitting any bodywork. So this is the point at which there would normally be an outro. It would be the end of the video, and we've got mission success. We've installed the camber plate. We've allowed for a 305 tyre profile to get in the wheel arch, and we're ready to rock and roll with a 255 front and a 305 rear. But we didn't want to stop there. We wanted to go a little bit further beyond what is the norm for a track day GT4. And we thought, why don't we go after our favorite Porsche's tyre sizes? And that is the 991.2 Weissach GT3 RS. And that tyre on that car is a 325 width rear and a 265 width front. And we went into the internet, we asked a load of customers, we did a lot of digging around with some of our traders, and we couldn't find anywhere where anyone had managed to successfully run a 265 front and a 325 rear on a standard bodied GT4. So that means no bodywork modifications carried out whatsoever. Now the main design concern we had was that with this camber plate that we've designed for the 305 fitment tyre, the bearing is already offset as much as physically possible up against the strut tower, and we didn't want to have to do any modifications to the strut tower itself. So if we've already got the bearing up against that strut tower, then how can we get more clearance by moving that in more? And we didn't also want to go to a smaller bearing, because it's quite important to have structural integrity and longevity out of all of our products, because we offer a full lifetime warranty. So we didn't want to start going for really small bearings that couldn't do the job. So instead we thought we need to use the same bearing that we've got in this top mount, but think of a way of getting it further over. So after quite a long time and a lot of development, we came up with this. So this is our new rear top mount, which has allowed us to get a 325 width tyre on the back of our GT4. So with this design, we're now able to achieve what no one else has achieved before, and that is get even more clearance at the top from the bodywork using a bigger offset position from the bearing. Now the way we achieved this was effectively by moving the bearing up and then inboard, actually inside the cabin of the car itself. And this still allows for the damper shaft to pass through the original strut tower, but it allows us to then package a bearing into that space. And we've also managed to design it in such a way that there is no modifications required to the car at all in terms of bodywork or the strut tower or anything like that. And it still maintains the standard damper bump to droop ratios. Now with this being uncharted territory, we didn't have a rule book to play by. So when we had developed the top mount and made it, we installed it. And again, we were still going to have obvious clearance issues because it is a very tightly packaged space. Also, a 325 tyre will not fit on the standard rim. It's too skinny to put such a wide tyre on there. It's 30 millimeters wider than the OEM 295 tyre. So we needed to increase the width of the rear wheels to get an extra wide tyre on there, which again introduced even more complexity. So we had to figure out exactly what wheel sizes were required so we could have wheels manufactured to those exact specifications so we could package this massive tyre into this space at the back. The same had to be done for the front as well. So this time for a 265 tyre, it was a 20 millimeter increase compared to the 245 OEM front. So again, we had to design a wheel for the front for the perfect offset so we could clear the wheel arch and the shock absorber with a 265 profile tyre tucked in there without modifying any bodywork whatsoever at the front. Once we'd finished calculating the correct sizes, we had the wheels made by Bowler, who have manufactured the wheels to the exact specs and tolerances, and they just fit and are millimeter perfect with those exact widths and offsets. With the correct top mounts fitted, the correct wheels and tyres packaged in there, we still had one last issue to counter, which was that the actual tyre itself was getting too close to the spring assembly on the rear shock absorber, because we had to offset the wheel inboard as close as we could to that shock absorber to tuck it in the wheel arch with this really wide 325 profile tyre. So to combat that, we simply fitted a shorter mainspring and we used a longer helper spring, and we wound up the locking collars so that we had the same ride height as before, but we now had the clearance itself between the wheel and tyre and the damper. So we now have the new camber plate fitted to the top, which allows for the 325 tyre fitment, which is a more aggressive camber plate than the previous one that allowed for the 305 tyre fitment. So with this now fitted, we've got a 325 tyre mounted to this 20-inch Bowler rim. Now the exact specifications of this wheel are a 20-inch wheel 12J width with an ET45 offset. That means that we have the wheel exactly where we want it in space. So we're just going to clear the wheel arch from full compression, and we'll show a shot from the inside soon to show you the clearances between the shock absorber and the wheel, and also the clearances between the wheel itself and the chassis. This really is a millimetre perfect fitment, and we cannot wait to get on track and test this. But I'll show you now with the jack. So if we compress it up again like last time, we do now have the spring fitted, as before we didn't, because we're going to take this on track tomorrow and we need to get this car set up ASAP as well. So it's going to stop just there before it starts to lift the car off the ramp. But you can see clearly now it has got plenty of space as it's about to tuck up into that wheel arch. So we'll show a close-up of that in a second. So we've got a similar gap there to what we had with the 305 tyre fitment. And on the inside, we've just got enough space to keep any contacts from occurring between the wheel and the chassis or the shock absorber as well. So we're extremely excited to get out tomorrow at Donington Park and put this through its paces. The weather is looking like it's going to be dry as well, so we can really push this hard. At the front, we're going to fit the 265 fronts as well, which I'll show you in 1 second. And then we're going to take this package to Donington Park with a 325 rear and a 265 front. And this is really significant because they're the same tyre widths as a 991.2 GT3 RS bisac, which we know is extremely fast and capable and does not lack mechanical grip whatsoever. To make sure that we had all bases covered, we've actually spec'd one of the larger tyre sizes that you can get as well. So it's a 325 width, which we've said, but it's also a 325 30/20. So it's on a 20-inch rim and it's got a 30 profile sidewall. So it's quite a big envelope. So we've made it work so that we can get this package inside the wheel arch and not contact the shock, the chassis, or the arch itself with the hardware that we've installed. This means that if you want to go for a 19-inch wheel option or a 325 25 profile tyre, then it will definitely fit because it will be inside this envelope and you'll have even more space available. So this will apply to the GT4 and the GT4 RS as well. It was a really important part of the process that if we were going to be fitting a 325 rear tyre, we had to fit a 265 front. This was for two reasons. One, we wanted to match the tyre widths on the 991.2 GT3 RS. Secondly, if we didn't increase the front tyre to a 265, then we'd have a situation where we probably had too much grip at the back with the 325 and not enough grip up front with a 245 or a 255. So we had to get the 265 to make sure the balance of grip remained well, otherwise we'd get an understeer, oversteer bias that all manners of setups would struggle to get rid of because it's a pure tyre difference. So in order to achieve that, we have our camber plates fitted in maximum position so that we can get the top of that wheel tucked in. Similar to what we did at the back, but at the front, it's a bit more common because that's the place where camber is adjusted on the Porsche chassis anyway. So we already had them fitted as part of the kinematics kit, so it was less of a challenge from the offset. The only real challenge from that point forward was getting the wheel offset absolutely perfect. So we ended up with an offset that isn't technically supposed to be possible on a GT4, but with the bowler wheel, we ended up with an ET52 on a 9.5J 20-inch wheel. The ET52 is supposed to be 3mm too far in, which would cause contact with the caliper itself. However, with the design of the bowler wheel, and if you check with your wheel manufacturer, you can make sure that the design does clear the caliper like that. So with that in place, with the ET52 fitted, we clear the arch, we still clear the shock absorber on the inside, and we still clear the caliper, all whilst housing a 265 profile front tyre. That's all the parts now fitted along with the wheels and tyres. We're really happy with all the checks we've carried out in terms of clearances. So now I'm going to get a geo put on this car because we're heading straight to track. We're there tomorrow, so we need to get this done and gone. And then we're going to be putting Chris Diamond behind the wheel of this car tomorrow to put it through its paces, see what he thinks, overlay some data, and see how this package works dynamically.